Hello, and welcome to another episode of Career Chat. I am Shannon Crooks, your host. Each and every week on Wednesdays at 3 o'clock, we have a new and exciting guest on the show to talk to you about their career. I'm going to ask them questions and get an idea of what it was like to go on their career journey. So hopefully you can join us today. I'm with the Prince George's County Memorial Library System, and I'm a librarian 3 at the Hillcrest Heights branch. And on today's show, we have Margaret Sullivan. She is an architect and she is going to tell us about her job. So, first question, Margaret, first off, thank you for joining me today and taking the time to talk.
Thank you. I'm so delighted to be here and be with you, Shannon, and to do tell our story, the Margaret Sullivan Studio story, so we can inspire future designers, future architects, future women business owners, whatever we can do to level up opportunity.
Yes, because typically a lot of women don't go into architecture. So, this is awesome that you're here to tell us like, your journey. So, first question is, what are your job duties and responsibilities, and how long have you been in this particular industry?
Oh, well, one of the things about I think job duties and responsibilities is when you're a small business owner, it changes rapidly and changes daily.
Mhm.
Um, but I have been in this industry of design and architecture now since I graduated from Clemson University in 1996. So somebody can do some math, 20 something years.
Okay.
Um, Prior to that, I went to Wake Forest University and studied art history,
Mhm.
and then decided my mother, I think, was very pleased when I said I wanted to transfer to Clemson to be an architect, because I think that sounded like a profession and very practical, and it sounded like you could confirm, get a paycheck
Mhm.
out of a job like that. And my unusual background is that I have two undergraduate degrees. Uh,
Okay.
so I transferred to Clemson and then went back to Wake Forest, and in 6 years got two undergraduate degrees. So my journey in my career started out unconventional and has continued to be unconventional.
Mm.
Um, and the the role, I think, of an architect is, there are two roles, kind of big picture roles. One would be to help envision and design awesome buildings and spaces and places for communities, all over the country, all over the world.
Mhm.
And the second role of an architect is to coordinate and to be the client liaison to a whole set of subcontractors that are working tirelessly and behind the scenes collectively. So your engineers, any specialist, like if you did a theater, you'd have a theater specialist.
Mhm.
Um, it's just kind of remarkable how much goes into making our what we often call the civic infrastructure of our communities. So I think the two kind of big picture things that I got out of going into the architecture world were being the hands and the vision for a client's goals with their facilities, and them being a big coordinator for both an internal team and an external team.
Mhm.
Um, so that's I started my life. I'm probably answering other questions that are down the road, so just
Oh, that's
cut me off when you need to.
good.
But
Good.
I started my life graduating from Clemson in '96 and working for a small architecture firm in Greenville, South Carolina for a year.
Mhm.
Um, it was a firm at the time called Neil Prince and Partners,
Mhm.
and they were collaborating with an architecture firm in New York City called Hardy Holzman Pfeiffer Associates, and on a project at Clemson University on a new student center.
Mhm.
And, I was the lowly intern, so they asked me to go pick up Malcolm Holzman, the
Mhm.
principal, at
Mhm.
the airport. And so I picked him up and got to know him. And, I think this just speaks to how critical connections are in getting to know people. When I was at Clemson, one of the associates from that same firm, Hardy Holzman Pfeiffer, had been my professor.
Mhm.
I worked for a firm that was partnering with them. I picked up Malcolm, the partner, at the airport, and that was such a great opportunity for me because I knew I wanted to move to New York City. My mother had been with AT&T and moved to New Jersey. I moved in with her for
Mhm.
a year, got a job with a small architecture firm in New York City for 2 years,
Mhm.
but then was able to reach out again to Hardy Holzman Pfeiffer, having had some relationship with two of the leaders of that firm, and was able to interview and go through the process and secure my first job with well, my second job in New York, but the job, my dream job.
Mhm.
So I think within 3 years of me graduating from college, securing a dream job is really such a remarkable thing, and I was very focused and very intentional and very strategic about it, and I just encourage everyone to to go into their careers with that level of audacity, even at a young age,
Mhm.
um, because the journey's not going to get any easier. Your journey's not any easier or less easy.
Mhm.
It's just where you are can make a difference. And if you're working in a place where you feel like you're learning, you're growing, you're supported, you're challenged,
Mhm.
then I think that can just make all the difference, particularly in those early years of your career building.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's great that you said that. Some young people are afraid to move away from home, especially if you grow up in a small town, because I'm from Greenville, South Carolina
Oh,
too.
I'm from Greenville too. I didn't know
Yeah.
that, Shannon.
So, a lot of my friends, when I said I wanted to move up this way to the
Mhm,
Maryland, DC area, were like, "What? How are you
mhm,
gonna live? You're gonna be by yourself." And,
mhm,
just taking that leap of faith that you'll be okay. You'll meet people that, will support you. And then, you'll learn the area. It's kind of like an adventure. And then
mhm,
sometimes in other areas, your career, opens up several opportunities versus, if you're from a small town. So,
mhm,
young viewers, if you're listening, please, be open to going to other places and not have that fear
mhm.
inside of you to
If
leave.
you follow your passion, you'll find your tribe. And if
Yes.
you
So
find your
true.
tribe, your passion will get reinforced. Those are
Yeah.
my two words of wisdom to my children. Find
Mm-hmm.
your passion, find your tribe, and you'll
Yeah.
always find your path.
Yep. And it'll all fall in place.
Mhm.
So the next question is, how much time did you invest into getting to where you are today? Because you have your own firm.
Oh, that's you don't want to hear that from me. I I'm a workaholic. Um, my son said, "You don't have a job, you have a crusade." And I think I don't. I don't. Architecture is a very labor-intensive profession, and it's known for being, um, I guess, I don't, the word is escaping me. It's known for using young people to work overtime and to work in conditions that aren't fair and just. I think for me, because, and this has evolved in particular because another part of my narrative is that within 6 months of starting with Hardy Holzman Pfeiffer, Malcolm Holzman asked me if I wanted to become a library expert. And I said, yes, of course, because having an expertise in a firm, I think is valuable. Being from South Carolina and a strong history of family members who believed education was the vehicle into opportunity and prosperity and justice and equity. Um, Being in the library world resonated with me at the time. But I did say to them, I don't want to. Hardy Holzman Pfeiffer was one of the major cultural architecture firms of the late 20th century, and I didn't want to not work on theaters, student centers, um, performing arts spaces, which was really their bread and butter. So I was able to be in a position of both and when I think given that opportunity, I took the opportunity to really invest in what they were giving me the opportunity to do, but also use it to grow personally and professionally.
Mm-hmm.
And it, it goes back to Malcolm Gladwell's book of like, I don't know, 100,000 hours or something. It's work, this work is work, and it takes time. And I think if you love what you do and you have support systems, I mean, I'm divorced now, but my ex-husband has always, when we were married and then being divorced, has always supported my personal and professional aspirations, and through um, through support, but also through childcare, sharing childcare duties, and now he really is 100% the support for raising our family. So it, I made a choice to spend the time that I needed. Sometimes it could even be up to 80 hours a week working, to build skill sets, to build connections. But I don't think one has to. And I think there is, the work-life balance that's important. I think every 5 years I found I needed to take a break. Every year, take a break. And even in I started my own business 7 years ago out on my own. And I found about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I just was kind of breaking down. And my business coach said, you need to see somebody. So I went to my therapist, and she said, you don't need medicine, you need a vacation. And it dawned on me that in my professional career, I had these cycles of every 5 years realizing I needed to evaluate where I was and go sideways or go another direction. And as a business owner, I hadn't given myself that opportunity to reflect that is critical. And so I think, I guess to answer your question, I think all of us have different cycles of need around growth, advancement, and where what we do has impact. And we have to be very self-aware of what that healthy cycle is. And for me, I think it's more, I can work like in a project-based environment where I can really be intensive for a period of time, but knowing that I also have to take an intensive break, whether it's a family vacation or whether it's a personal vacation, to stay healthy. And some folks, it's, they do it in weekly cycles. Some folks do it in monthly cycles, but I think it's critical for the health and well-being to know what your sustainability mode is.
Yeah, so viewers, work-life balance, we haven't talked about that on our show yet. So it is very important that you take a break, you kind of know your limits. I know some people who plan out their vacations for the whole year, when the year starts, like, and I never am able to do that, but I admire them for, knowing, okay, here, about 30 days or so, I need a break, or, here is my birthday and I always do something special on my birthday, So it's very important for people to take breaks. So thank you for bringing that up.
Oh, and I'm going to say one more thing, because I have to make this plug too. I think for me, as someone who was fine committing to, overtime and working as much as it took to do the work, the rude awakening came when I had children. And, you don't have the same choice to work the same long hours, and it's expensive. And so even though in my staff staffing model and my business model, in the past 7 years, we've not had folks that have had families.
Mhm.
I'm very aware that I want to create a healthy work-life balance for the young people, so that when they are choosing alternative, life choices than they're currently in,
Mhm.
they've built in those systems so that they can be present with their families, they can enjoy their time um, outside of the office is refreshing. So it's important to me as a business owner to set up those systems of um, health and wellness, because the profession of architecture is so project based that
Mhm.
you have to be disciplined about ensuring that you do that.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a great tip for the small business owners, to think about when they're hiring people, because when people feel like you care and you're invested in their health and well-being, they will go the distance, with regard to work. They'll do the work. They'll,
Mhm,
show up and give 110%, when
mhm,
people feel cared about,
mhm,
and when you make them a priority or their life a priority. So thank you
mhm.
for bringing that up as well. So, Margaret, what are some of the obstacles you faced in the pursuit of your profession?
Oh, how long do we have, Shannon?
As long as it takes, Margaret.
It's there's so many obstacles, and particularly now I'm appreciating that we can be honest about the systemic obstacles that at times when you're experiencing those obstacles, you feel like it's your own. What did I do wrong? And I think a kind of big wisdom is that we're all product of systems. We're all products of ways of doing work that probably need to change, in our capitalistic society. So, my singular word of advice right now is that when any of you or us are facing obstacles, take that as an opportunity to assess that the obstacle is really feeling like a challenge, because it may be that you need to go in a different direction and you are in charge. And I think one of the biggest challenges for me was an experience that I had when I started my firm, because I'm a collaborator. I like to work with people. I
Mhm,
never had any intention of owning my own business.
mhm,
Um, and
mhm,
and that doesn't mean I wasn't entrepreneurial. I just didn't see it as something that would be um, a need, because I had been working in a firm structure that the the partners were, nearing retirement age. It seemed like right for timing and the opportunity that I'd been given to grow and become the director of interior design in the firm. I had developed connections with librarians, progressive librarians all over the country.
mhm,
Um, to stay in a firm and become a partner and to become a leader, and there's a framework that's set up like that, whether you're a law firm or a business financial firm or an architecture firm. That structure is there.
mhm,
And I realized that I was inheriting a structure that didn't suit my value system.
mhm,
And it felt like I was getting beat up a lot, but in fact, I was just in an environment where there was a misalignment with goals, values, um, the opportunities I was seeing for me professionally weren't valued by the peers that I was with at the time in that office. And so I think that was very challenging, because it's disappointing and very sad. It's like you've been in a relationship for 15 years that you thought was going to be a wonderful marriage, and that and simultaneously I was getting a divorce. So I was almost having these two breakups happen at the same time. But what you complain and you cry and you get mad and you get frustrated, but one of the most insightful things to me was I went to lunch with a woman who said, wake up every morning and do what you need to do. And so that shift in being more strategic and more in charge enabled me to do things like schedule lunch with mentors, call people up and just get advice, reach out to potential clients that I would want to work with. And so it enabled me to take a very challenging situation and turn it into something that actually resulted in a very organic 6-month process of me winning work independently and enabling me to start my own business with in a very unique and an organic way that upon reflection seemed like the only path that ever would have come out of the 15 years that I had been working toward using architecture, using design to position the public library as a 21st century vehicle for social change and social impact. So without going into like, all the 20 years of challenges, I think that story probably is symbolic of knowing that challenges are a way for you to see opportunity and make change. And I'm a woman-owned business in a male-dominated world. I mean, I can tell you daily where those systemic challenges occur, and the answer is always build your network, surround yourself with the people that are in support of you, and live by your values.
Oh, wonderful story. Yeah. It reminds me of when I decided to transition to being a librarian from a social worker. My story is similar to yours. I'm still married, but we've been separated for several years. We haven't gotten to the divorce mark yet, but I know it's coming. But I was going through that, and then I was burnt out from being a social worker, and I did the same thing. I did a self-reflection, is this job really in alignment with my values, with my work ethic, with what I want to do with helping people? And when I started to really like evaluate that, I determined that, it wasn't the job that was the problem. It was that I didn't fit into the job anymore. I still want to help people. I still want to, build those relationships with people, but just not in a social work way. But in the libraries, I begin to thrive because this is what I want to do. This is what I like to do. So when you were talking about working those 80-hour weeks, if I do that as a librarian, I'm okay with it because this is what I love to do. It's in alignment with my beliefs, with my values, with my work ethic. So I think that's so important. And I hope this show, convinces the viewers to, self-reflect on where they are now with regard to their career, and maybe it's not a good fit, and that's okay. You can look to do something else, and you can maybe still carry the skills you built in that career to a different career and still
we always can, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're at such a unique moment where that opportunity to be entrepreneurial without these fixed conventions of 40-hour work weeks, fixed conventions of hierarchies are just ripe for being challenged. And, I hope our young people really, can see that they, can push up against the systems that we all, I'm Gen X, we wanted to change the world, but we didn't change the systems. So I want to encourage folks to change systems and use us for wisdom, but help us change the way we do business. But with your values and with your passion, there's just so much opportunity right now to.
Yes, so true. Just don't be afraid, viewers. Go out there and conquer the world
and make connections.
Yes.
Just meet as many people. Someone made fun of me because I just pick up the phone and call people and introduce myself. That is what it takes.
Yes.
Old fashioned.
Yes.
Pick up the phone.
So what other networking skills do you have or networking advice do you have for people who, want to start meeting people, forming those relationships? What can they do?
Well, I think it really boils down to authenticity and curiosity. And a little flattery goes a long way,
Mhm, mhm,
too. And I think the more people that you meet who have a shared interest and shared goals and have experiences that you can learn from, the more opportunity you're giving yourself to advance your goals and
mhm,
to grow in the career and the profession and the opportunities that you want.
mhm,
So, it really, we've got all these great technology systems and platforms, whether it's a LinkedIn or
mhm,
I'm on something called Alignable. But at the end of the day, it's the people that get out behind their desk, out behind their computers, and make those connections. And um, one of the things that's been really, really useful for me is that both have a profession and I've also been involved in a nonprofit. And I
mhm,
tell a lot of my young people, like, have two things in your life because they play on each other and they enable you to make connections, um, that in one construct you might not feel as comfortable or confident reaching out to someone with, but in the other you would. So, for example, with my nonprofit, I can reach out and cultivate folks by inviting them to events or inviting them to be a part of conversations about, it's called Open House New York. I can invite folks to be part of conversations about the city. And I'm developing relationships that then also, when they learn that we design public libraries, that develops an interest on their end. And then they might make a connection or referral to somebody that they know that needs our services. So, you really are working your relationships to build your network that is the key to expanding opportunities.
mhm,
And one of the things that was great about being in New York during the Bloomberg era was that he really knew that greasing the wheels of the economic development engine was by getting people together. So there was there was always an event honoring or giving awards to,
mhm,
that the city would host. And, that's where you meet people and you make connections and you make deals happen. Um, and I think there are a lot of people who don't realize that that's the special sauce. And I know so many of us are introverts and not extroverts.
mhm,
But I think putting on an extrovert hat to be in the rooms and to engage, um, whether it's a breakfast, I call it the breakfast, lunch, or dinner,
mhm,
to be in those spaces. And, we'll get over COVID and we'll get back to the place where those events are happening. But even during COVID, this kind of forum is just so fabulous. And, we're able to rub shoulders,
with a
um,
lot of people.
yeah, that we wouldn't have otherwise.
Yeah.
So,
And then organizations are having events on Zoom, so you don't have
yeah.
to worry about transportation. If you live in a different state, it's a possibility that you can still participate.
Mhm,
I just came across an email from someone who was advertising an internship with
mhm,
the Smithsonian, and it's now virtual, but it's still paid. So that's a huge
mhm,
opportunity for someone who doesn't live in the Washington, D.C. area. So I
mhm,
posted on my social media, hoping that
mhm,
someone will take advantage of it. But yeah, now is a great time to see what's out there, get involved and participate
mhm,
because we can virtually.
mhm,
So yes, huge
mhm,
opportunity. And then the fact that you said get from behind your desk. Yes, so true. We get so caught up in our cell phones and our computers, that we oftentimes forget that, sometimes, having conversation with someone face to face, socially distanced, of course, right now, but
Mhm.
can, really make a connection, or you can
Mhm.
make a connection for something else.
Mhm.
So I think that's really important, that we network with people and not be afraid, even in your own work organization. There may be someone in a different department, but
Mhm.
you may be interested in that department. So opening up dialogue with them to see exactly what they do on a
Mhm.
day-to-day basis, or see if there's opportunities for you to come work in that department, is a huge way for you to not only network, but get an opportunity to try something different, try a
Yeah.
different career, or see what a different career is like.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. I think there's a period, there was a period in my career early where I didn't love everything that I did,
Mm,
but the opportunity to know that I was learning, learning through things that I both enjoy doing and things that I didn't enjoy doing, was valuable.
mm-hmm,
And trying new things. I think as a business owner, I see the value of adaptation. And that's what they keep telling us, that the 21st century skills are going to require adaptation, flexibility, being responsive to the community's needs,
mm-hmm,
being able to take risks. And I think the the need to learn and grow through trying new things and learning through opportunities, that particularly at a time in your life where it doesn't feel like this is something that you want to do, that all of that has value to make you a more resilient professional.
mm-hmm.
um, so learning,
Absolutely.
growing, adapting, taking on risks. And
Mhm.
but Shannon, you said it, like it happens at the water cooler.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. I know, I supervise a small staff, and,
Mhm.
just by them sometimes having conversations with other people, they get
Mhm.
offered an opportunity to do something great, and they come
Mhm.
back and say, okay, Shannon, I had this conversation with this person and they'd like me to be on this project. And I'm like, wow, that's awesome.
Mhm.
That's great that you stepped out there and had that conversation. You built that connection. This is a way
Mhm.
for you to build and grow your skills. Now, sometimes they say, I'm a little hesitant
Mhm.
because, I've never done this before. I don't know if I'm going to do a good job. And, I think supervisors need to be okay with those conversations with staff.
Mhm.
Vulnerability can sometimes help you motivate someone to say,
Mhm.
hey, yeah, I understand your fears or your hesitancy.
Mhm.
Let's try to work together to come up with a way for you to be able to conquer your fears and still try this out. And sometimes when they try it out, they come back and say, Shannon, you know what? It wasn't that bad. I actually enjoyed it. So I think supervisors too need to be, aware that sometimes you have to, motivate staff
Mhm.
to try new things or suggest that they try new things, and
Mhm.
not just keep them in a box. Oh, this person never volunteers, or this person never tries to do something because they have, this fear or this thought process behind it. We have to encourage staff to try new things too.
Mhm. Yeah. I have a business coach, and he said to me once that the his goal is to make sure we're putting our teams in positions where they're performing their best work. And I love
Mhm,
that. And for everybody, that's different. And Lena Vong, who I know you've met from our office, who's worked with me for so many years, and she's just so talented and wonderful.
mhm,
When I was hiring her 15 years ago at a firm that we worked for together,
mhm,
I said, you might not love everything you do every day. You might not love the design, but you're going to learn how to do anything you want to do.
okay.
And I think that is also a good thing for us as leaders and mentors, to give tools so that their vision can flourish, and they know we're there to guide them through our experience of knowing what tools to use, but
Mhm,
honoring their aspirations and goals
mhm, mhm,
to take, whether it's a design in a direction that we didn't think it could go, or design in a direction that they know the client might appreciate, but we had never imagined that.
Mm-hmm.
Or even take them on in a direction where they're failing forward, but
Mm-hmm.
have the network to know that that experience is something that's important to their growth.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I will say, as a small business owner, failing forward is a hard thing,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
because your name's on the door. You know, the as a woman, you already are feeling vulnerable and that you're not good enough,
Mm-hmm.
and it's hard not to be perfect when you're in that construct. But that's why relationships with clients is so important, to have that high trust too.
Hmm. Yeah, failing forward is so important. I know a lot
Mhm,
of small business owners are experiencing that right now with
mhm,
COVID.
mhm,
And I hope they are learning something and learning how to do things in new ways. I've talked to a couple of business owners and they've talked about their adaptation through COVID. And, they said they've learned things that they've never learned before, or
mhm,
they've discovered resources that they never, used before.
mhm,
And that, it's caused them to be more creative
mhm,
with their work. So I think that's huge that we can even still learn something through failing forward now in the midst of a pandemic.
mhm. So much innovation can happen. Um, I think small business is tricky. I think the PPP has been useful. It hasn't been a, the salve,
Mhm,
but I think um, we didn't have revenue for 5 months, and that's really hard. Um,
mhm,
and we did use that time to grow and to work and do a lot of pro bono work that has grown our skill sets.
mhm,
But I think, and I know you've been talking to a lot of small business owners. I think I would like for there to be some more federal programs that can support small business ownership moving forward in this country,
mhm,
because we're definitely seeing where it's the backbone of our communities.
mhm,
And so many of these businesses, they're just other systems in place that I think could keep us from floundering. Um, but certainly, for those of us who can see it as the opportunities that it's given us to grow and adapt and learn and innovate.
mhm.
Um,
Yeah, it's so
that's all we
important.
can do, right?
Yes. Yeah. So, with that being said, how has your, field of work changed since the face of COVID?
I think for us, um, it's given us some time, like us personally, to reflect on our business model.
Mhm,
And because we've been in the world of libraries as long as we have for the past 7 years, that's been our primary focus, and really understanding the implications of the disparities of this country at a deep level prior to COVID. I think it's emboldened us to advance our business model, to really focus on the communities and the communities that our clients serve
mhm,
in more courageous, relevant ways.
mhm,
And um, how do we take a business model that's rooted in design as a tool for social change
mhm,
and make it even more impactful, because we've got so much work to do and we need to do it quickly to
mhm,
build and to recover from systemic injustices, systemic racism, and um, endemic power systems that are both, obviously in the country, but also in our own profession.
mhm,
And I think it's just giving us more resolve that what we're doing is important,
mhm,
and that um, we can build we have to build business systems that enable us to be impactful because there are certainly challenges to things like requests for proposals that we have to respond to, that by the time a request for proposal goes out, this any social justice agenda has already been depleted. And so can we make changes before before those requests for proposals are issued, that we respond to, things like that. So I think that for us has been the biggest change, that we know we have, what we do is important and impactful, and our business has picked up significantly, I think, because we've been working in this realm of design as a vehicle for social justice for such a long time, that folks see our methodology as valuable and essential and critical to impacting the change that our communities need, that the individuals in our communities need right now.
Yeah,
from our institutions.
Right. Social justice is a huge concern right now for a lot of organizations, and I'm glad a lot of places are working to address it. It's something that hasn't been addressed for quite some time. And the fact that organizations are, taking a step forward, taking a, and even a step back to look at what they did and what they can do in the future is, extremely important.
Well, Shannon, y'all are Prince George's County and the library system are leading the charge as anti-racist, as an anti-racist library, knowing that, it's active work.
Yes, it's very hard work. It's very active work. It takes everybody, all hands on deck to get involved. And, there's some hard conversations sometimes, that have to happen. And I think
you have to feel this change, right?
Yes. I think organizations have to embrace that and, make a safe place for people to express those thoughts and feelings, respectfully, of course, but that's the only way that organizations are going to understand how they can go about starting the change. Is they're going to have those difficult conversations. So yes, PGCMLS has started the process. We have a diversity team that actively meets and is working towards making those changes. So yes, we are, actively trying, not only internally, but also externally. When we look at programs for people, what does that look like? Are we being equitable? Are we being diverse and inclusive? And I think it's really helped because the community is responding, positively to our programming. So yes, we are trying to do our due diligence with that. So, with that being said, what are organizations saying to you about, equity, diversity, and inclusion? Are they trying to say, okay, when we start this project, we want you to include an aspect of social justice in it? And how are you tackling that?
Well, I think it's interesting because yes, and then I think we're challenged. There's a challenge to maybe it's the industry's comfort level at that being explicit in that request. And I guess, as someone who isn't necessarily comfortable with the changing language all the time, am I practicing a microaggression unintentionally, all of those fears we have when we make ourselves vulnerable to even surface and be explicit. I think what I'm learning is that there is such an appreciation to be courageous and vulnerable, that in itself is what we can model to engage in the work. And I think the other thing that I'm realizing that as designers, we have tools to engage in this work that make it creative.
Okay.
And that in and of itself, it's like I always used to say, even though like when my ex-husband and I like had a project together, there was all sorts of tension. It was good for us to have a project together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's how we grow. We have a project, and that's what architecture can give us. That's what designing a new library can give us, is the vehicle to bring diverse and complex communities together with intention around a shared opportunity to design a public library experience that has no definition. We can make it whatever we want. And so that's a huge gift that Margaret Sullivan Studio can give a community that needs something to create together. And so I don't think that I don't think that we've experienced a comfort level or confidence that people are calling up Margaret Sullivan Studio and with an explicit request.
Okay.
But I think we're getting to where we're having conversations candidly about that this design process is a vehicle for social justice. When we come into this work with a shared courage around a shared value system.
That's interesting that, you say that, because a lot of people, when they think about architecture, they just think, oh, it's just about the design of a space, but it's the intentional design of a space with regard to social justice, with regard to how the team connects with each other, with regard to how you're going to use the space. So, it's a lot of critical thinking. So, viewers, if you're interested in this type of career, you have to be a critical thinker. You also have to be someone who, like you said, can, have conversations with your clients about how they see the space, challenge your clients about, how they originally see the space and what it could be or what it could potentially grow into. So it is a lot of critical thinking. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because some people just think it's just the space. We design a room, we design a building, and that's it. But it's more to it than that. It's being intentional about your creation of how you're going to use that space.
Yeah. And the other thing I want to bring up on this call, because it's my recruitment pitch, but 98% of the architecture profession, I am not a licensed architect. And I made that choice about, I don't know, 10 years into my career. And that's a whole nother conversation that we could have another time, Shannon.
Okay.
But 98% of architects are white, of registered architects are white.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Wow.
So my friend Kimberly Dowdell, who was the president of, who just this past year was National Organization of Minority Architects president, has made a commitment that the architecture profession needs to. I think they've set a goal to, increase that number significantly, but it's a significant amount of work on from the academics to how you get licensed, to architecture firms being advocates and agents for change. And I think librarianship also has
the same problem.
Yeah. Not at the same exponential level.
Right. Yeah, that's quite high.
I just encourage anyone who wants to go into architecture that it is, get in touch with me. I will be your agent. I will be an advocate. We have internships in our summer so that we can do what we can as a small firm to make a radical change in the profession. But I also say that because I think particularly for librarians who are hiring architects, that's just an awareness that everyone needs to have, because we need the lived experiences of our diverse and complex communities to make the decisions for our communities at every level. And it's, we got work to do.
Yeah, it's a work in progress. Oh, great. Segue into the last question, which is for me. I wish we had more time, Margaret. This is such a wonderful career chat.
Well, I'll come back anytime, Shannon.
Yes,
When
definitely.
when
We
we
will.
when we hear from folks what their questions are, we
Yes.
can evolve our conversation to be responsive.
Yes. And you said, you have opportunities, so we can provide your contact information
Mhm.
in case someone's interested in internships with you. So thank you for that. The last question is basically, what are some resources the library offers people who are new to the job market? Maybe you're changing careers,
Mhm.
are looking for work due to COVID-19. Well, you can visit our website 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at pgcmls.info. Our website's recently been updated, but the content is pretty much still the same. You can go to the online library, the jobs and careers section. You will see Brain Fuse, the Learn and Express library. You can complete career assessments, search for jobs, create resumes, and get expert feedback or receive interview tips from a live coach on Job Now. There's resources designed for veterans there as well. You can prepare for college if you are a high school student, brush up on any job skills if you are re entering the job market. There's also step by step guidance to discovering your interests, choosing a career, and so much more. So visit us there, use your library card number to access those resources. And students in PG County, you can use your student ID card, which is also your link card. You can use the numbers on the card. The last four digits is your passcode so that you can access our lovely resources. Margaret, thank you for joining us today. Oh,
Thank
such an
you, Shannon.
incredible
Shannon, where did you go
conversation.
to high school?
I went to Southside High School.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I went to Augusta Circle
I went to Crystal
Elementary.
Circle.
You did? Oh, I love
Yeah.
that school. And then Hughes Middle School.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
My
so
ex went to Hughes. I moved, but the Augusta Circle is such a lovely school.
yes, I still keep in contact with some of my teachers from the
Oh,
school.
good. Well, that'll be our next conversation too.
Yes. So thank you, Margaret.
Thank you,
Such
Shannon.
a pleasure talking with you. You dropped a lot of workforce gems for our viewers, and hopefully they'll be able to take some advice that you gave and use it later.
I hope so too.
Yes. Viewers, join us again next Wednesday, 3 o'clock, as we explore another exciting career. Enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Bye
All
bye.
right. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.